and the 7th Beatle. It was this time, right, that they were all leaving the dressing room, the boys, right, after rehearsing.
Yeah.
And they tried leaving the club, right. They tried leaving the club through the basement door, which I knew was locked. So as they're going out, they're pushing, right, and they're screaming, help, help. Help, they're screaming like that, And I said to him, listen, do you want to know a secret, And Paul looked at me, and I'll never forget. He looked at me, and he said to me, what? And I said, listen, you can't do that. Listen, you can't do that. Help. Well, the next thing I know, those songs became number one.
Well, but they were not songs in the form that you were telling.
What I really basically did was plant the seed, didn't I?
Okay, but did you literally write music with that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I did write, a number of songs that actually were presented to them, and they played a number of them. As a matter of fact, it was when I started to present these songs to them that I began to notice their seamier side.
Why?
Well, I mean, for instance, it's documented in the book, by the way. 8 days a week, All Hell by Noddy Macklenson, the 7th Beatle. What happened was, for instance, John, he just refused to accept me despite my obvious contributions. Like, I think he was extremely jealous of my sexual prowess,
Well, that's pretty much what Pete Best said.
Yeah, did he really?
Yeah.
Well, John had that insecurity, I mean, I don't want to make a big thing of it, but, I am what I am, and I once said to him, Johnny, baby, I'm a rich man, and I ain't talking money because money can't buy you love. So they'd start hearing things like this, and whenever John would be with a bird for some reason, when I was nearby away, he'd sort of like run away from me. And I'd yell, relax, John, she loves you. Yeah, So that was John. Of course, Paul had his problems too.
Like what?
Well, I mean, Paul was fiercely insecure about his lyrics, his songwriting, He was always afraid that I'd steal his song, Like the one time, which is detailed in the book, 8 days a week, or Hell, by Noddy Macklenson, the 7th Beatle. He was sitting there playing the piano, right? And I'll always remember I was playing on, and he was writing yesterday, love was such an easy game to play, now I need a place to hide away, right? So I turned to him, I said, Paulie, wouldn't it be better if you said, yesterday, love was such an easy game to play, now I'm not so happy and gay. You see how it's really, those lyrics are really much more in keeping with the gloom of the song, Of course, he just rejected it, but it's his way of covering up his realization that my lines were so much better.
Well, you have I noticed you brought a keyboard with you. You're going to play some of the songs as you had them?
Yeah, I have a couple of little things, actually, the way my music really would reflect what the Beatles were about.
Okay, now, what happened? How did you wind up leaving the Beatles? What happened?
Well, after all, when they started to rise to fame and were all, hot shots and everything, well, they didn't have the time for me then, did they? Once they were able, you notice in the latter days, the songs really weren't as strong as they were in the beginning, and it's all mainly.
But you were gone before they even left Liverpool, though.
Well, I was sort of with them, really. I mean, like in the like 60s and right into like 64, 65, I would see them occasionally.
But you weren't with them in 64, 65, because when they came to the States, you were nowhere to be found.
No, I mean, not really with them, like physically in the way of actually being with them. I mean, like right next to them, no, but I was with them. I was in their hearts.
When did you leave the group?
Well, I mean, it was shortly just after I joined them for that brief time when I started to. It was in the 60s, actually, when they started to get this...
Well, did you ever play with the group? Did you perform with them on stage, all of you together at the same time on the same stage?
Yeah, sort of, yeah, right. Because what would happen is I would be playing and they would be playing very nearby, and we'd sort of jam.
Nearby in the same room?
A couple of times it was the same room, yeah. But no, I mean, it really has to do...
Wait a minute, you're saying you're one of the Beatles, and you're telling me that you didn't even perform together?
Obviously, I'm not one of the Beatles.
You said you were the 7th Beatle.
Well, it's sort of a symbolic sort of thing.
So you were never one of the Beatles?
Well, I mean, when they broke up Apple in 70, I wasn't written into the contractual agreements. I didn't get any money. But
no, what you're saying, but you were never on stage with the other gentlemen. You were not. There were not four of you. You being one of the four on stage at the same time.
Right. No, I was. Yeah, right. I was with them. Yeah.
You said that they were in the men's room and you were on stage playing.
Right. Did I tell you the time about the haircuts?
No. What about the haircuts?
Well, just further proves that what I was about was really the formation of the Beatles. You know, this idea that they've got their haircuts, you know, the
Yes.
mop tops.
Right.
You know, they had this bloody thing about they came out of the shower and they found that their hair was wet, you know, and then it became the Beatle haircut. That's not how it happened at all.
How did it happen?
Well, it was the night that I was there. The night I was there, I was at the end of the bar, right?
Yeah.
And Ringo and the boys were up at the bar, and they were sort of having a drink in the cabin. And what happened was, I was going to go over to them and say, you know, it would look really great if you let your hair go over your ears and sort of have a bowl like a mop top, right? So I get my pitcher of beer, and I was going to go over and buy them some lager, you know, and just as I'm about to reach them, I trip over a chair, and the beer falls all over Ringo's head because he's so short. And, you know, the beer, like, it dried, and then soon they were pouring beer over each other's head, right? And then, oh, look at the haircut we've got. Right, bloody right. Like, I didn't have a lot to do with that, eh?
All right, our guest is Noddy Macklenson, and when we come back, now you claim to be one of the. I don't think you had anything to do with the Beatles.
No, you see, that's not true at all. Haven't you been listening to anything I've been saying?
I think you fantasized and you have created situations. You've kind of forced the situation here where you're trying to assume that certain things that happen influence the Beatles, but they had nothing to do.
How would I know all this stuff? You know, about where they've been, where they're going.
Everybody knows where they've been.
No, well, but not in the way I have. I mean, I was there in the beginning. I was part of the whole scene.
Would John Lennon and did they ever admit that, or would McCartney today say that you were?
Would McCartney? It's so ridiculous. Of course. Why would he admit it when he'd have to give me $20 million? He's not going to do it, is he?
We'll come back. I want to take some calls, and I don't know whether the public believes this or not. I think he slept with Jessica Hahn.
That was my.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they were talking about that. I read in the papers the other day because about.
You're probably going to claim that, Nick. You're going to claim you slept with Jessica Hahn, right?
Like I claim, like everybody, like I've slept with people just to become famous. Like I need to become famous or something.
Well, this Beatle thing sounds very shady.
But if I slept with Jessica Hahn, it wouldn't be in my book, 8 Days of Hell by the 7th Beatle Noddy Macklenson.
323 at WNBC. We'll come back, and you're going to do some of the songs. You claim that you wrote these songs with the Beatles?
Right, and a lot of the songs that are really, when they were writing them, I said, do it this way, and for some reason it changed around, right?
We'll find it the way they were originally, the original form you're going to do for us.
Right, in the same style.
In just a second on WNBC. For only 14 on the same stage at the same time.
Well, sure, I played a little with them, sure. I mean, it was never like in the big concerts because when they were really...
Well, tell me when did you and the Beatles play together on the stage at the one time? When?
It was...
on the same stage, the same song, you as one group, you as part of the Beatles.
You mean like in front of people and everything?
Yes.
Well, I mean, they weren't ready to show the kind of music that we were ready to produce to the public, so they kept it quiet. They didn't want to really, show that they had another member because I'm the piano man, and Paul was very insecure about that. Because
you play the piano?
Well, yeah.
You don't play guitar?
No, I was a keyboardist, right. That's one of the reasons I was so important to the group.
Well, they didn't have a keyboardist that I know of.
Right. That's why Paul, of course, Paul used to do it. I mean, Stu Sutcliffe used to play bass and stuff. And
but they never performed with a keyboardist that I know of.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, Billy Preston, years became later, they decided, well, let's get someone in here to play. But in reality, I was the person that used to play all their keyboards and stuff when they were just starting out and when they were developing themselves as a band.
All right, let's hear some of your songs. Then I want to take some. I don't know what the public thinks of this. We'll get to the public, and your claims are very, very shady right now. Very shaky.
Well, of course you're not going to believe it because I mean.
Well, people knew about Sutcliffe and Best. Why haven't you ever been documented before?
Well, that's why I'm coming out with the book. I'm letting people know about it.
8 Days a Week or Hell, but
right by Noddy Macklenson, the 7th Beatle.
But Pete Best, people knew about him. People knew about Sutcliffe. The Beatles acknowledged their existence. They've never even talked about you.
All the more reason to suspect it, wouldn't you say? Suspect the kind of influence that I had on them.
Okay. Can you give an example of the music of...
This gives you a little idea of when they hit their intermediate stage, the kind of songs that I was starting to write with them and for them, but then they sort of took it and changed it around, but I think you'll get the flavor. There's a fool on the hill, and it's me. There's a fool on the hill. Everybody's laughing. Let it be.
You wrote that?
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the song that came out on the album, you know, was of course very similar and stuff, but it was really me that gave them the idea to go into that sort of heady, mystical kind of thing.
Wait a second now. First of all, you say that they had trouble. They were now. Help happened when they were yelling help because they got stuck in a men's room or something.
Right. That's the first time when they were trying to break out and stuff. They were yelling help, 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 and I said, you know, like money can't buy your love. Help ain't gonna help. And then they said, oh yeah, help, great idea for song.
Did they tell you that that was
the movie?
Did they tell you that was the inspiration? Did they tell you that?
Well, yeah, in so many words. Because did you see the movie? In the movie, like, help, and what the whole theme is them rushing out of doors and, like, trying to get plays, like, help, I need somebody, you know, all that stuff, right? Well, that's all them getting inspiration about the times that we had back in those days,
now what about
which is documented in the book, 8 Days a Week. Oh, Hell, by Noddy Macklenson.
Like, now this song that you just did, this Full on the Hill, you claiming that was the precursor to their song Full on the Hill?
Exactly. I would be playing in the clubs there, and they knew of my rep, and they'd sort of like stick an ear into the room and find out what's going on, and sort of give a nod of the head like, yeah, that's one we'd like, you know. And next thing I'd know,
did you ever talk to the Beatles?
Well, sure, in a manner of speaking, sure.
Well, what do you mean in a manner of speaking?
Well, like I just said, you know, they were running out of the doors, and I told them, look out, the door's locked. I mean, that's speaking to them, and they'd be on stage. You
were not part of the group.
No, of course I'm not. There was a four. Okay, should we say the name of the group now, boys? John, George, Paul, Ringo, right? Okay, the four Beatles, we all know that. But what I'm saying is that back then, I was the person that was playing piano and helping inspire all their songs.
Did they at that time, did they call you their piano player?
Well, not in so many words. But what they were saying at the time was that we you know, that we've got a lot of songs and they're inspired by.
Did you tour with the group? Did you travel with them?
Oh yeah. We did a lot of that. A lot of times they would be in their cars, you know, and I'd be right behind following them.
Well, you wouldn't be in the same car. You wouldn't travel with them.
Well,
you follow the Beatles around, is what you're saying.
Well, what would happen if the press got hold of it, right? If all of a sudden the press got hold of, there's a fifth Beatle in the car, right? I mean, then there'd be all sorts of hell breaking loose.
All right, what other? So give me another example of one of your songs.
All right, sure. This one, actually, I wrote this one for Ringo, you know, and the thing about it is Ringo was such a jovial sort of guy that they were looking for humor in the group. So they heard me doing this one, right? So, and it came out eventually like this, you know. What would you do if I walked out on you? Would you get really angry and upset with me? 'Cause I'm not the man you love. You see the similarity in the music.
You wrote that before they wrote...
oh, sure.
With a little help from my friends.
Right.
You wrote that before they come out with a little help from my friends?
Right. And it's just like another one, you know, talk about this humor. They were also afraid of my sense of humor. You know, they were afraid that I might be a little bit too quick-witted for John, because John was very insecure about his, you know, humor, because he was such a brilliant guy and stuff. But I know I wrote this song, which was very similar to the one that came out. And you may remember it was something like... Why don't we relate a little on the highway? Why don't we relate a little on the highway?
Why don't we relate a little on...
Relate a little on the highway. Because what I felt...
Relate a little on the highway.
Relate a little, you know? That was the thing, that was their problem too in accepting my music, is that, you know, eventually it came like, do it in the road, right? Well, my idea was that instead of really making it kind of crass, why don't you raise your heads up a little bit, you know, like appeal to the upper masses. But they didn't understand that until later on when they started to get into it.
Did you ever sit down and play your music for the Beatles?
Oh, yeah, like I said before, I'd be on the stage and, you know, they'd be like walking past her in the back room or something and they would hear my music.
Did you ever have a formal meeting with them? Did you ever have a formal meeting with them?
Well, I mean, formal, what do you mean?
Did you ever sit down and talk to them at the same table?
Oh, yeah, right. I'd walk in, they'd be there at the table. I'd say, hey, boys, how you doing tonight? You know, how's the music going? Did you hear my latest song and stuff?
You're a fraud. You were never the 7th Beatle.
Well, what do you mean it wasn't the 7th Beatle? I mean, I was. I got the book coming out.
They've never acknowledged you were a Beatle.
It's all going to be documented in the book.
They never acknowledged you were a Beatle. These gentlemen knew you from afar, from a distance. You were never part of the group. You were not an included part of their group, ever, were you?
Well, not in so many words. No, I mean, I wasn't like the fifth Beatle. How can it be? How can I be
the... Not in so many words means no.
No, how can I be the fifth Beatle?
Well, you're calling yourself the seventh Beatle, and you're saying that you're
look at Pete Best.
You're calling yourself one, but he was at one time the drummer for the Beatles.
Yes, he was.
But you were never the keyboardist for the Beatles.
That's because I was the keyboardist when they were afraid to accept the reality that they needed a keyboardist.
In other words, in your head, they needed a keyboardist, so you called yourself the Beatles keyboardist, but in their heads, you never existed.
Well, it's very difficult to get into their heads, isn't it? I mean, I'm just trying to say what happened at the time and the way I perceive what was going on.
I tell you, rather than rake you over the coals, as I'm starting to do, rather than tearing you apart limb from limb because I think you're a phony, I'm going to let the audience do it. I'm going to let the audience get to you right after this break and let them talk to you.
I mean, why would it be a phony? What's the point?
All right, we'll take some calls for Noddy Macklenson, who claims to be the seventh Beatle, and as a book. You have a book company, you have a publisher for this book?
Well, sure, right. Matter of fact, after my tour here in New York, meeting some people, I expect the book to be out in a few months as soon as a deal is struck.
Have you talked to publishers?
Yeah, a little bit, right.
Well, you say a little bit, but
well, I mean, the book is not on the stands yet.
Has anybody offered you a deal to publish? Has anybody said, I want to publish your book?
A couple of people are very interested.
Who?
There's some big names, I forget. I'm not used to this terminology.
Big publishing houses, they say they're interested?
They say they're really big, yeah.
You know their names? Can you repeat that?
Well, I can't really. I'd ruin the deal. I can't really say anything right now because they're lawyers and all that stuff. They don't want to get into that stuff. If I say I'm going to be with this one and then I go with that one,
And what proof do you have? At least Pete Best had pictures of himself with the Beatles? Well, there were albums of him playing with the Beatles?
If I'd known I was going to be interrogated, I would have brought some proof, I've got it all.
But Pete Best has albums with the Beatles? Do you have any albums? Any tapes of you with the Beatles?
I've got some tapes.
Have you with the Beatles? Videotape?
Well, I mean, not in so many words.
You don't have anything in so many words, do you?
Well, I mean, because that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, a lot of years they gave me the shaft in the whole situation, and they never wanted to agree.
Did you ever eat a meal with the Beatles? Did you ever dine with them? Did you attend their meetings? Did Brian Epstein represent you?
No, I was not an official member. If you want to get down to the brass tacks, right? I wasn't an official member of the group.
But you're passing yourself off as one with this new book.
No, I was saying I was a seventh Beatle. Really, it's sort of a thing in the heads, the sort of person that is really part of the group.
You're saying you are a Beatle, aren't you? You came here under the pretense that you are a Beatle.
Well, I mean,
is that not the pretense that you came here?
That I was so close to them, right? I was so close to them. You might as well consider me a Beatle.
When's the last time you talked to any of the Beatles?
Well, I mean, they never really were friendly with me because they saw the threat I was to them.
We're going to take a break here, and quite frankly, I'm not going to bother with you. I'm going to let the audience do it when we come back at 247-8666, because I don't want to waste my time. The WNBC Christmas Tree is a book, and you say you have a book coming out. You don't even have a publisher yet.
Well, I mean, because it's in that stage. I mean, it's a lot of people have been asking about it, and everything.
So what do you do? You're in New York looking for publishers. That's why you're here in New York right now.
Yeah, and to meet the press a little when when they're ready.
8 Days a Week or Hell is the name of the book, and let's see who's on the phone. WNBC?
Alan.
Yes.
How you doing?
Good.
Listen, I agree with you 100% when you say this guy's a fraud, and I think you'll agree with me when I think that you, me, and my friends should all give him a golden shower.
Sir?
I think that the three of us should give him a golden shower.
Sir, can I tell you something?
Yes, please.
You've called up and made that remark a number of times. The next time you say it, it's not going to get on the air, so don't waste your time.
Alan.
Thank you. WNBC.
Yeah, Alan, I got to ask you something. Is this guy for real or what?
I don't think he is. I think he's a phony.
I mean, come on. Who's this guy? Does he look English? He doesn't sound it.
Well, how does one look English?
What's the matter? What's he supposed to sound like when you're English? Can you tell me?
The English people look different than Americans?
He's talking through his nose. I don't know. He's trying to...
You have a question for him?
Rip off of John Lennon's voice here, Oh, yeah, okay. I got a question for him.
Listen, first of all, the reason that we sound similar is because of the region in which we're from. A lot of the people sound that way. If you listen to a lot of the rock groups today, you'll hear people that have sort of Leninist qualities in their voice. It's because of where they're from.
WNBC?
Yeah, Alan, I have two questions, one for Noddy and one for you. For Noddy, I want to know how
you can claim to be the developer of the Beatles haircut when we all know that it was developed by Mo Howard of the Three Stooges? How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, we're all fans of Mo Howard, but the thing is, I really don't think that that's the story that they claim they're putting out there, that that's how they got their cut. They didn't say they got it from the Three Stooges. They said they got it from a shower, which is, I think, is bloody foolish.
And, Alan, the question for you is, why do you waste time on bits like this with idiots like this when there are really funny guests out there, like the guys from the Late Night Supper Club? Why aren't you having them on?
Because I have no interest in having them on right now. Do we look into Late Night Supper Club? We're checking into that.
Okay.
WNBC.
Hello, Noddy Macklenson, please.
Hello, yes.
Mr. Macklenson, I'm a native of Glasgow, Scotland, and I took the ferry boat across the water one time to see the Beatles at a place called the Rathskeller. I remember a guitar player and part-time semi-organist named Macklenson. I wanted to see if you were the same one. I want to ask you a question. Only a true Liverpudlian would know the answer to this question.
Yeah, what is it? Of course.
Why are people from Liverpool called Liverpudlians?
Well, because of the little river there.
Why aren't they called Liverpoolians?
Why is that? Can you answer that
You're
question?
asking me? Well, I was just from south of Liverpool.
Oh, you're a Confederate.
Well, if you're going to talk in that sort of language relating to the American Civil War and stuff, but really the Liverpudlians is sort of just a little way that they talked and stuff. From what I understand, had a little to do with the region there.
All right, Macklenson, let me ask you this. Are you a right-hander or a left-hander?
You mean when I'm writing my music? Do I write with my left hand?
No, when you're playing.
Oh, when I'm playing. It's a right-hander, yeah.
No, I saw a left-handed organist.
Well, that was Ian Macklenson, probably.
Thank you. WNBC.
Hi, Alan.
Yes.
I was just wondering if he helped the Beatles write any of the songs that Charles Manson used to kill, during the Helter Skelter thing.
You mean, did I write Helter Skelter?
Yeah, did you write any of the songs like Political Piggy or anything like that?
Well, they got a lot of their ideas from me and stuff. Of course, when they eventually put it on the record, it sounded a lot different because of the way they decided to orchestrate their songs.
Thank you. WNBC.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Good.
I'd like to say, first of all, I can't pronounce the gentleman's name, but I'd like to tell you, first of all, my honest belief is that you're a fraud. And I'd like to ask you, why do you come out now? Why didn't you come out when the Beatles were popular and when they had their immense fame? Why are you coming out now?
Well, because as the years have gone on, I've sort of realized that it's about time that maybe the truth came out about this whole thing and really what was going on in those days and who I am as a musician.
Why now? You need the money now, pal? Is that it?
Yeah, I know. Maybe the time that the Beatles were...
What are you, the Jessica Hahn of music?
I think you were formulating this little story is what was going on.
You think I've been thinking up this story for all these years, huh?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Right.
What do you do for a living now?
I'm sort of working with Andrew Lloyd Webber in London.
You're working with... What do you mean, sort of working with Andrew Lloyd Webber?
Well, it's involved in the music in a small way in the...
What are you doing with Andrew Lloyd Webber?
Well, it's actually in the Palace Theatre out in London.
What are you doing there?
Well, I mean, right now, when I'm not sort of doing a lot, I'm sort of an usher in the
You're
theatre.
an usher in the theatre?
Well, I mean, it's just temporary because a lot of my songs now are sort of being held up copyright-wise and everything while all this...
Why are they being held up?
Well, because, if I'm going to put out the book and everything, then maybe it's about time that people realize exactly...
Wait, you're misrepresenting yourself here. You're saying you're working with Andrew Lloyd Webber when you're in fact working as an usher in a theater. That's like I could work in a movie theater and say I'm working with Robert Redford if I'm seating people to...